listeners, welcome back to the Lone Screenplay Nominee Podcast, where we talk about films that were solely nominated for an Oscar in the writing categories. I'm your host, Matthew Anderson, and today we have Meredith Loftus back on the podcast, who was previously on for the Royal Tenenbaums episode back over a year ago. How you doing, Meredith?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back, and welcome to 2025. And we have another Wes Anderson movie that came out this year, so it feels fortuitous to finally do this.
I know, right? Yeah, it's very It's I actually forgot that the Phoenician Scheme came out early this year. I think it's now on Blu-ray and DVD as well.
Yes.
Okay, so so we got a Wes Anderson, another film out this year, and I figured why not cover one of his earlier films. To be fair, this was bad scheduling on my part because I was actually supposed to have this out around the time the Phoenician Scheme was supposed to come out, or at least around that area during the summer, but things just fell apart. You know, it happens. So, yeah. So anyways, today we're here to discuss Moonrise Kingdom from 2012. If anyone is interested in watching this before hearing our spoiler-filled discussion, or you'd like to own a physical copy of the film, check out the links below the episode. I also list off the equipment I use for the podcast, as well as film books I recommend you read. If you're interested in learning more about screenwriting or Oscar trivia on past ceremonies, and since I'm a part of the Amazon affiliate program, some product links used are compensated affiliate links, so I earn a small commission each time you click through and purchase said products listed below. And just a heads up, there's no additional cost to you. What you see is what you get. So with that said, we're going to jump right into our film talk, which was written and, well, I should say co-written and directed by Wes Anderson. Roman Coppola is the co-writer on this film. The film, Moonrise Kingdom, is a coming-of-age comedy revolving around two 12-year-old kids who fall in love with each other and decide to run away. As this goes on, an impending storm lurches over the island, making the search for the kids even more urgent before disaster occurs. And that's pretty much it. It's I before we started recording, I also did a little bit of production remarks or history on this, and I had forgotten that Wes Anderson and Roman Coppola, when they wrote the script, it was partly inspired by 400 Blows, which was a film that we already covered on the podcast before in the past. So I've already done an episode on that, so you can hear more of my thoughts on that as well. Yeah, so anyone who's already listened to Royal Tenenbaums, you already know how much of a hater Meredith Loftus is for Wes Anderson. No, I'm kidding. No. She loves Wes Anderson a lot, to where, she's already stated how much she's loved this filmmaker, well, Oscar-winning filmmaker now. So, so I just want to pass the baton or mic off to you, Meredith. What did you think of Moonrise Kingdom?
Yeah. Moonrise Kingdom for me was definitely one of the first Wes Anderson movies I watched, not the absolute first movie. And when I initially watched Moonrise Kingdom, it's still one of my best friend's favorite Wes Anderson movies, and for me, it was kind of a grower. So initially, I liked it, but I didn't love it. But looking at my list of all of the Wes Anderson movies, it is in my top 5. So it took some time for me to really see the whimsy and the craft on display with, or actually no, the craft was already on display, but the fact for me to connect to the story, it did take a little bit of time, but I absolutely adore it. Every time I go back to it, I always have such a good time with it. I'm impressed so much by this ensemble cast and the young actors involved. It is, we are about to begin celebrating and rewarding casting directors for bringing cast
Yep.
together. And I would argue that Moonrise Kingdom, if that were a category back in 2012, 2013, they should have been nominated. I mean, the fact that they got together, Lucas Hedges, like baby Lucas Hedges was in this movie. You have
Yeah.
Bruce Willis putting off a incredible performance in the latter half of his career. Edward Norton, this is his first Wes Anderson movie, and he
Oh, yeah.
absolutely fits into the world of Wes Anderson, and clearly we have seen him be a repeat player since, as well as Frances McDormand, Tilda Swinton. This is her first Wes Anderson
Oh,
movie.
Jesus.
Bob Babylon. We've got Jason Schwartzman in the mix. Bill Murray, a repeat player as well. Harvey Keitel. And actually, I think this is Harvey Keitel's first Wes Anderson movie before he jumps into Grand Budapest Hotel. So, like,
Yeah, I was
Moonrise
about to
Kingdom.
ask. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
about to ask if this was his first, because I'd forgotten this was Edward Norton's first, but I was wondering if it was Harvey
Mhm.
Keitel's as well. Okay.
It was Harvey's as well, and Francis and Tilda. So
Okay.
you're seeing every movie that Wes Anderson has done, he starts to bring more people into his troupe. And I think Moonrise Kingdom was a big movie of a lot of his current repeat players came out of Moonrise Kingdom. So from that alone, from a coming of age story, from a production standpoint, colors, scheme and story, score, the soundtrack, it Moonrise Kingdom is a delightful movie. Every time I watch it, I have a good time with it. So, what do you think of Moonrise Kingdom?
Well, it's been a while since I've seen this all the way through. And I knew when I started the podcast that this was obviously one of the first films. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I got to talk about Moonrise Kingdom, and I got to talk about Royal Tenenbaums. So how you feel about this being more of a grower, like over the course of, it took you a while to finally get around to this. That's how I felt about another film of Wes Anderson's, which was Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I think is, it actually took me a while for me to get around to that one. And I'd only known of its existence from I think it was like middle school. So 2009, 2010, when I guess a class of mine that I didn't attend was watching it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then over the course, I think it was like early this year, actually, I rewatched Fantastic Mr. Fox, and I'm like, oh, wow, it's actually it's not too bad. Even as like a kid's movie, it's pretty good. But as for this, I thought it was fine. I'm not head over heels with it like I am with Grand Budapest Hotel or Royal Tenenbaums. We were both, bubbling about that, especially coming off the heels of him finally winning an Oscar and going back to seeing where his original roots were as a director. But I did enjoy enough of the film to be like, I'm glad I saw it. I would like to give it another chance down the road. Obviously, this is my second viewing, but yeah, I thought it was like a decent movie. I agree with you that there are some performances in the film that are pretty good. Frances McDormand, like whenever I see her in a movie, even in something I'm not really the biggest fan of, despite getting a lot of critical acclaim and people telling me like, oh my God, Nomadland is like a fantastic movie. It's a masterpiece. And I'm like, yeah, I have my issues. But I'm always shocked by how, no matter the films that she does, she's always, at the barest minimum, she's going to give a good performance. And she's one of those actresses that you don't need her to, to play on these like method acting approach where it's like she's got to put on a wig or, get a dress or certain shoes or whatever. And boom, she's the character. She is that character. It's all through just her natural acting talents that showcases her different performances that she gives. Even her Oscar wins that she's gotten so far with Fargo, Nomadland, and Three Billboards. They're completely different characters from each other. And it's just astonishing the fact that she's one of the few actresses still working today who doesn't need all of the whatever it is, like the treasure chest, toy box, where it's like, ooh, I need to get in my disguise, like some of these actors like Johnny Depp, where it's like, oh, well, he's an actor that clearly needs that to, get into these performances. But yeah. And Edward Norton is pretty good too. I actually thought he was pretty great in the film. And it's even more impressive for this to be his first Wes Anderson movie, and he fits so seamlessly. It's very similar to even this the Phoenician Scheme, I think it was, where a lot of people were talking about Michael Cera was like, oh my God, he fits like a glove in these Wes Anderson films. Why hasn't he been in a Wes Anderson film before? And I'm pretty sure Benedict Cumberbatch was another actor who it's like he was in the shorts that Wes Anderson produced for Netflix, and it's like, holy shit, like this guy's pretty good too. So Yeah, but overall, I thought it was a decent movie. There's aspects about it I clearly appreciate, and we'll definitely talk about it more specifically when we go through some of the scenes of the film. But I don't hold this in high regard for Wes Anderson, but I don't think this is nowhere near his bottom. I would say, like, if you're asking me like what would be his weakest film so far that I've seen, I think I'm missing like one or two movies of his, but from what I have seen, I would say something like Life Aquatic might be his weakest film he's done so far. I've only seen it once. Like a lot of these Wes Anderson films, I've only seen once, except for Budapest, which is the only one that I've actually gone back to watching. And then there's a couple others, but I would like to revisit his other movies. And I always keep saying this every time I watch a new Wes Anderson film, where I'm like, I don't have a lot to say about it on my initial watch or two, but I would like to revisit it. But so far, I enjoyed enough of it, so that's kind of where I am with this one.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like I said, with you being clearly the bigger fan of Wes Anderson, are there any moments in the film or anything that really stood out to you that made this a really a great watch?
Oh, there's a few great scenes. I'm a big fan of the scene when Sam and Susie are on the beach together and they dance to Francois Hardy's Le Temps de l'Amour. I was actually listening to it before I hopped on here, which I think is just such a sweet moment of like childhood innocence of they're fully free from their parents, from the troops, from his Boy Scout troop.
Yeah.
And it's like a pure expression of freedom and innocence that I think like Wes Anderson really captures quite well between the two of them. I love the scene of the first time Sam meets Susie and asks her what type of bird she is. Just the editing of that, the costuming, and just the bluntness of him to just like single her out as somebody special to him is just fascinating to me. I really love I love when Sam and Susie reach out to cousin Ben in order to help them try to escape. I think just like the troop dynamics at play or the scoutmasters, I just think that was like really fascinating to me and really funny. And I am not the biggest Jason Schwartzman fan. That is like my hottest take on being a Wes Anderson fan, is like I have to put up with Jason Schwartzman on multiple levels. Another hot take, Rushmore is not my favorite Wes Anderson movie, and most people regard it as best. Couldn't be me.
I can't comment
But
because I haven't seen it.
okay, I would be very curious to get your thoughts on Rushmore, but because of that, I like that Jason Schwartzman's role in this in particular is it's only for a scene or two and it's impactful, it does its job, and then I don't see him again. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I also love just Edward Norton in general in this movie. I just think like him as Scoutmaster Randy is just perfect. In the same way that as you alluded to with the Phoenician scheme with Michael Cera as Bjorn, he was born to be in a Wes Anderson movie. Edward Norton was born to be in Wes Anderson movies, and it's so clear just like his mannerisms, he just understands the rhythm that it takes to be in a Wes Anderson film, and I think it's one of his best in Moonrise Kingdom, at
Yeah.
least where he's used here. So I could go on for days about this movie, but the last scene I'll highlight for me is the scene between Bruce Willis, his Captain Sharp, and Sam when he takes him in before he decides to adopt him from child services, when he's like housing him for the night, and the two kind of like bond, and they're both
Yeah.
very similar as far as just kind of being alone in the world and trying to like make sense of it and realizing that the two are kind of like meant for each other in that way. And I think it's really beautiful. So many of Wes Anderson's films the kids are acting like adults and the adults are very stunted in adulthood, that they act pretty childish. And I think like their scene in particular is this great cross section of the two of them meeting and realizing they're both kind of in the same place without being the same age. And I think the screenplay really captures that. So those are some of my favorite scenes. What about you?
I agree with you with Edward Norton. Like his timing, especially when we were introduced to him as a scoutmaster. I love the timing of the whole scene where he's going through, scout checking, and he's like, "All right, how those rockets going? We don't have enough." And he goes, "All right, fine." And as he's checking about the rockets, he's holding his cigarette away from the rockets, which I love that sort of blocking that Wes Anderson does too. It's really quite good, and even though it's very much symmetrical blocking that he's always known for doing, he still knows how to block, which is something that a lot of these amateur directors or upcoming directors just don't know how to do. They don't know how to block their actors in the film. They're like, all right, put the actor there, cameras here, all right, boom, that's it. It's like he doesn't even think about the placement. It's almost like in a way to where it feel, I guess to some of these directors it feels like math, where it's like, all right, well, if I gotta move here, and then it's like, yeah, whatever, I don't want to think about that. We're losing daylight or whatever. But I really appreciate Wes Anderson for the fact that he is one of the directors out there that really does know how to block his shots and even actors. And even especially in that scene, I thought the blocking in it was pretty good. And yeah, like the timing, again, the way he spouts the dialogue. And Edward Norton, he's an actor, I from what I've heard of stories about him, I know that he is, I wouldn't necessarily say a hard actor to work with, but he is one of those actors who is very serious with his work. And he can, if he wants to, he can play his roles with a bit of method acting to it. Now, over the last couple of years, he has grown to be a bit more friendly, especially with the interview process. Like he's been more on the circuit, mainstream, so to speak, with various, when he was on A Complete Unknown, he was willing to talk about working with James Mangold and working with Timothée Chalamet, and even worked on a lot more of these ensemble heavy picks, like Glass Onion and things like that, and obviously Wes Anderson's other films. So it's clear that this actor has grown, a bit. He's grown out of the ways that we thought of him as an actor, where he was like hard to work with, very much a prick kind of actor. But it's like he's really not. And I appreciate that he was willing. Like, this is one of the times where it's like, all right, because of his time working on Wes Anderson, it almost seems like the films he's taking on now are like, all right, let me try to focus on an ensemble heavy crew, and let me try to get a director who actually has a distinct voice and a vision that will help. That way I could just trust. I don't have to, ask 20 questions, 24/7, and I could just be like, you know what you're doing, so I'm going to play my character and let's get to this. So I appreciate Norton for becoming that kind of person, and yeah, it's great to see him work with Wes Anderson, even his other films he's done. I think it's great. And then Bruce Willis, great performance from him. It's a shame that this became one of his last major roles. I know he did a couple other roles after this, but in terms of like films that got critical acclaim and was considered for, again, Oscars and major awards and such, this was one of his last films that he had done before he had retired. I can't remember what his final film was. I know it was like a direct-to-video film, though. But it was nice to see him show up in a movie, again, with a director who was able to use Bruce Willis's acting talents, and I think he's pretty good here as well. I do like Bill Murray in the role. He's more of a supporting character, of course, but I do like whenever he shows up in a Wes Anderson film. It's just so fun to watch, even in Fantastic Mr. Fox. I was like, yeah, that's cool. So yeah, I'm trying to look through my notes to see if there's any other specific uh scenes. Oh, what I guess what I did notice though on this rewatch is that out of all the Wes Anderson films I've seen, and granted, his quirks, or at least his bag of tricks that a lot of these there's a lot of people out there that really are getting sick and tired of his bag of tricks, and you're either on board with it now or you're not. And I guess for me, I started noticing more and more of it, not necessarily the symmetrical shots, but again, the kids talking like adults. Then you have the way that Wes Anderson writes his dialogue out, and it's very much it does have like a punch to it or a bite to it, but it has that quirky, dark comedic tone, especially with the boy. What was it? Sam, I think it was. When he gets struck by lightning. It's like, okay, that's very much like a darkly comedic tone. And then and then he gets up, and then all he does is like rub his dark, what do you call it, like smoked out glasses with his shirt, and then boom, he's able to see well. So it's very much, it does have the Wes Anderson isms in there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that this is one of the first ones that I'm on my rewatch round, or whatever you want to call it, where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to notice his quirks in the film, not necessarily in a terrible way, but in a way that it's like, okay, it's a little bit distracting me from getting invested in the film. But there are some of his comedic tones that do work. Like one joke that I think was pretty funny was when they're at the church, and it's right after the flood happens, where Bruce Willis yells out, someone get Jeb a coffee, and then you see the altar boy just snap his finger, and he points to the other kid like, go get the coffee. Like, that was pretty funny. But yeah, it's just there's not enough in here. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I would have liked to have had a bit more connection with these characters, and I would have liked to have a bit more there for me to chew on with the movie, but there's still enough in here that I still liked. But yeah, I'm trying to go through my notes to see if there's anything
I gotta say though, as
else.
you're looking through your
Yeah.
notes, I do find it interesting that some of the quirks you're noticing here, he's been doing a lot of those quirks since his early films. Like, you talk about Rushmore and Royal
Yeah.
Tenenbaums, like that, those are prime examples of kids being the more mature, wise beyond their years, and then the adults are the more emotionally stunted individuals in the movie. And so, yeah, when you decide to go back to Rushmore, you're going to see that in his second film. Like, he was doing that with his child character, or the kid characters, and that was Jason Schwartzman's feature debut. So, as much as I don't love Jason Schwartzman, like, you see that type of Wes Anderson character born in Rushmore.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's not like, oh, this is like, oh, I never noticed it before. I always knew some of his quirks were there. It's just, it becomes an issue where, much like these other directors we have in our own, whether it's like, oh, there's a director here where it's like, I'm starting to notice more of their quirks than I am noticing their storytelling. It's almost like the way that a filmmaker tells us, a way a film is done by a said director is like a magician act or a Cirque du Soleil, where they're throwing so many at you. They're throwing so many tricks and magic balls at you that you're not even noticing. We're moving on into the next, the next act of the whole, hour and a half Cirque du Soleil. But this is a case where I'm like, I'm noticing the pickpocketing. I'm noticing the coin behind the ear trick a little bit more than I am focused on the story a bit. But again, I should also say that I'm not coming at this as like I'm hating the movie. I'm not. But I'm just more on the, I guess I'm more on like on the mixed, kind of area for this one out of the Wes Anderson films. Does that make sense?
It does. But I'm also like, yeah, but Christopher Nolan always messes with time with his movies, and yet we accept that every single time. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Like the thing is with Wes Anderson, it you said it earlier, like you're either on board with his style or you're not. And
Yeah.
what a lot of people, the criticism towards Wes Anderson is that he seems to make the same type of film, but he really doesn't. He actually has like he has refined his visual story language over the years. Like when you go back and watch Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, even Royal Tenenbaums, and see where he is now and kind of the intricate shots that he has. That is
Yeah.
refined over time, but you see the blueprints of it in those early films where there are a lot of similar themes that you find with the types of characters that he and his collaborator Roman Coppola create together, but they also vary movie to movie. Like thinking about Phoenician Scheme, this is the first time he really dove into the relationship between a father and a daughter, which was reflective of his own relationship with his daughter. And you see that in with Moonrise Kingdom, it is very kid centric in a way that a lot of his other films are adults stuck in Arrested Development, mind you. And I do think that he's doing something a bit different. And this was one of his first movies that he did a specific time period, that it is drenched in this 1960s aesthetic. And I think it plays really well
Right.
into the types of themes that are able to be illuminated in the mix of this time period, the aesthetics, the color stories. Like he Moonrise Kingdom is really where he hones his craft, and then Grand Budapest I still think is his crown jewel. It's my favorite Wes Anderson movie, but we
Yeah.
cannot ignore the legwork that Moonrise Kingdom did for the rest of his filmography moving forward.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm okay with a certain filmmaker's bag of tricks, so long as again there's enough in there for the story for me to get more invested in. It's just again, it's very much a subjective kind of thing where it's like you're either on board with it or you're not. Even with Tarantino, he does the same thing where it's like having a long monologue that doesn't need to be dragged out for so long, and then boom, there's like an over the top bloody violent shootout or stabbing or whatever, and his use of profanity and using a lot of racial slurs.
And his feet
So
shots.
yep,
We're all
yeah,
fine
his
with
feet
his feet
shots.
shots, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So it very much, and also I'm pretty sure in a couple of his movies he's abused women in his
Yep.
films, especially with like Hateful Eight with Jennifer Jason Leigh and Mikey Madison in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
And Inglorious
So
Bastards, Diane
yep,
Kruger.
yeah. So it very much is a pick your poison kind of thing. Like you're either on board with a bag of tricks or not. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I would have liked to have seen more of to be more connected with the story. Um, and yeah, but I guess yeah, it's kind of like you're either on board with it or you're not. And to be fair, even Phoenician Scheme, I did enjoy the movie enough to where I was like, I think I gave it like a low 7 out of 10 for my first viewing. But if I rewatch it, it might go down with my rating. But I don't know. But yeah, it is what it is. I will say I did appreciate the use of soundtrack, the pre-existing soundtrack within the film, and also Alexandre Desplat's score. I think is quite beautiful for what it is. And I honestly forgot that Robert Yeoman shot the movie and that Adam Stockhausen did the production design on this. It's quite impressive to see, again, as you said, this being like a blueprint for what would eventually become Grand Budapest Hotel, where he's working with almost the same crew, at least on set, that would end up working with Wes Anderson on Grand Budapest Hotel. And even for this being, I think, like a $16 million, $15 million budget, it's quite it's astonishing to see what he was able to accomplish for some of these model works and set decoration, what he's able to do. Because again, you're watching some of the flood sequences, and you're like, how the hell did they do that? But then, obviously, if you know about model work, you could see some of it is very much like, okay, yeah, they clearly use model, lower scale to make it feel more grander and epic scale. And that's fine. I appreciate that still, though, the fact that he was willing to go for models and miniatures. But no, I appreciate what Wes Anderson is trying to do on a technical level. I think he's, every time he does it, I'm like, yeah, he's pretty good. And again, I mentioned blocking before. It's like, not a lot of directors, especially the upcoming ones, know how to block their actors, especially when they're out in the field looking for clues of where Sam and Susie are. And the way that's blocked with Bruce Willis and Frances McDormand talking, and in the background in the middle you see Bill Murray on a bike or whatever. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that kind of blocking. And, that kind of like making it block to where it's like, all right, how do we make this look interesting, but it ties itself into the story instead of being like, oh, look, there's a pretty shot.
Well, I think remember a couple of years ago when Asteroid City came out, there was like this TikTok trend of like trying to replicate a Wes Anderson film or like the aesthetics and stuff. The thing is, he's really recognizable, but when you actually try to do it like him, it is very difficult. And I think that is like such a testament to him and the people that he has brought into his world to bring these worlds to life. It is not something as simple as, oh, I blocked this correctly and therefore, like, he makes things that look so simple, like it's actually rather difficult, and it is a skill. And fun fact, I did interview the production designer for Phoenician Scheme, and he jumped on during Darjeeling, and his first film that he did was Moonrise Kingdom. And nice. He gave me a little bit of a story as to what that process was like as far as starting to scout locations and sending people out, and like, I love it. I love it so much.
Awesome.
Yeah. But I mean, we celebrate our tour directors all the time, and Wes Anderson is often one that, like, yes, he's in the conversation. It's like, oh, duh, naturally. But I feel like he gets like swept under the rug in a lot of ways. Film bros do not get behind him the same way that a Tarantino, a Scorsese, or a Nolan does. And yet, like, there's really no one else doing it like him. Like, I've seen other directors kind of mimic his style. I think Autumn de Wilde is the closest one I have seen. She directed the 2020 adaptation of Emma, and
that's right,
phenomenal job. And I remember watching it the first time and being like, she is a student of Wes Anderson, because of the blocking, the shots, the color, the humor, just everything about it. It reminded me of Wes Anderson in very positive ways. But I also know it takes a lot of effort to do it. And that's why I will always be one of the biggest champions of Wes Anderson. I just adore what he's able to do. And he's one of the few who can do it, and he does it so well. And I will never ask him to do any more or less than his best. And if this is the style that he wants to stay in, I'm like, let him do it, because who else is doing it like him?
I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, so as of this recording, I just finally saw the first Paddington movie yesterday. I know. Yeah, I know. I didn't have the time, and I was supposed to watch it actually this past fall, but I just didn't get the time, and I had to do a flyover from here to LA, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to have the right, because if I'm going to watch a movie, especially a new one, I can't watch it on a flight, because all I'm thinking about is, what if the plane crashes? Oh, now we're hitting turbulence. I can't focus on the movie that I'm trying to watch. And I, honest to God, did try watching Paddington on my way back from Vegas to home, but I finally just saw it yesterday. And watching that film, at least the first one, some of that did remind me a bit of like Wes Anderson, in terms of like that child-friendly, lovable, cozy type
Wes Anderson isn't the most child friendly. Like Fantastic Mr. Fox, because most of his movies, everyone is cursing back and forth, and Fantastic Mr. Fox,
sure.
You cursing at me? You cussing at me? I was like, that's him right there. So.
And Grand Budapest Hotel is, even though it is a rated R film and you see lots of nudity and lots of language in it, it does weirdly, it does, like, when you look at the trailers, you're like, oh, this seems like a kid-friendly type movie, and it's not
No,
at
it is
all.
not.
Especially when you get to the prison sequence where the one of the inmates kills a bunch of the guards, and it's like, yeah, this is not kid-friendly. But he has, at least with the look of it, it comes across a little bit like a Wes Anderson film with Paddington, so there is a little bit of that there.
Yes.
But yeah, so you're right, though. It's just, he's a really, I said this even on the Royal Tenenbaums episode, he's a really well-gifted and intelligent filmmaker that I always appreciate whenever he's got a new movie coming out. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go see Wes Anderson's new movie.
And he's working on the next one, and I'm very excited. Michael Cera better be involved, so.
We don't have a release date on it yet,
No,
right?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, holy shit, that was like quick turnaround. But then again, I remembered I think it was Asteroid City was being worked on right as, what was the film? What was the film before Asteroid City? I'm blanking.
The French Dispatch.
What's the name? Yes, yeah. When that was done, he was already working on Asteroid City.
And the reason why he wasn't at the Academy Awards to accept his Oscar for The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar was because the next day he was starting on Phoenician Scheme, which I'm like, go off, King. I'm so proud of you. But also, you should have been there to get your Oscar.
Yeah. I know there were some people who are like, oh, he's not there. Thank God he didn't show up for the award. And I'm like, well, okay. There are some people out there that aren't the biggest fans of Wes Anderson, but I do like him. I do like Wes Anderson as director, even though, like I said, I feel very much mixed on the movie. There are moments in the film that I do appreciate and I like, but I'm not quite as, what do you call it? I'm not quite the biggest fan of this one, of his films he's done. But yeah, I definitely would be interested to see more of Wes Anderson's other movies, and I'll have to rewatch his other films. Again, the only 2 films of his I haven't seen so far, not including the shorts that he's done. So Rushmore, I said, was one, and then Darjeeling Limited, I think, was the other one I haven't seen.
Really? So you've seen Bottle Rocket?
It's been a while since I've seen Bottle Rocket. I remember liking it. That might be it might be one of his weaker ones. I did appreciate it.
Film too, in a way that you can tell it was kind of a student film, but yet he was able to get proper funding and get people involved in. Obviously, he met Luke and Owen Wilson in college, and boy oh boy did he think. And he befriended Robert Yeoman. That was his first film that they worked on together. So, I mean, of his filmography, Bottle Rocket is at the bottom of my list, but for the record, Wes Anderson has never made a bad film, period. I'm willing to say that for the record. There are definitely filmmakers who have hits and misses. Bottle Rocket isn't a bad movie, but it's very much a first movie.
Yeah. And for the record, even someone like Nolan, I'm like, I can name a couple of Nolan films that I actually do not like. Yeah. But I'll share that off air, if you like.
We're trying not to make the Nolan bros mad today, so.
Whatever, who cares? He's already won his Oscar for director and picture. He's fine. Come on.
And he's getting ready for the Odyssey, and I just want him to make it like Troy. Go off, King. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, he's one of those directors where I'm like, all right, cool. Now he's got his Oscar. I'm curious to see what he's going to do with his career now that he's got one. Same with Wes Anderson, where it's like, all right, let's see what you do next. I personally don't know, if we want to transition into the award section here.
Totally
I personally don't know if Wes Anderson's ever going to win another Oscar down the road for something. Maybe. I don't know.
I wouldn't bet against him.
But I mean, look, if the one Oscar he gets was for The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, I'm okay with it.
Well deserved, honestly. And talk about Benedict Cumberbatch hopping into the world of Wes Anderson like he was born to be there. That was such an obvious, that makes so much sense. Yeah. And he just nailed it in such a perfect way. I hope that is not his only Oscar, but also, who else would make a short film like that? Nobody. So good on him.
Yeah. So anyways, so I don't think there's much else we could really talk about with Moonrise Kingdom. I enjoyed enough of it. Meredith loves the film a lot.
Also,
And
follow
yeah,
Jared Gilman, who plays Sam, on Twitter.
yes.
I definitely follow him, and sometimes he'll just like tweet out a random tidbit about Wes Anderson, and I'm like, this is great. But he's also just like a film fan, like most of us on there,
Mhm.
and it's fun to see his particular takes on things. So that's the only thing I'll add. Go follow him. He's delightful.
I agree with that, and also I failed to mention there's a short film with Jason Schwartzman out there with like the it was like they used it as promo for Moonrise Kingdom leading up to the release, where Jason Schwartzman and his cadets are showing like a screening for Moonrise Kingdom, whatever. And I thought that was a little cute, fun, 2 minute short. I was like, all right, that's cool. I like that. So that was nice. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So, like I said, there's not much we could talk about with the film itself. We've said all that needs to be said. So we're just gonna transition into the awards section here, which I'm curious to know what your take is on some of the, what happened with Moonrise Kingdom with the awards. But I'll get to that. Before we get to that, I want to give like a first little blurb or transition piece for that. So Moonrise Kingdom premiered at the 65th Cannes Film Festival, where it was not only the first time a Wes Anderson film was screened at the festival, but it also competed for the Palme d'Or, which is the coveted Best Picture prize to them. But it lost to the eventual Best Picture nominee, Amour. It was given a limited theatrical release on May 25th, 2012, where it started its run with New York City and LA screenings on a production budget of $16 million. The film made over $68 million worldwide, which I believe at the time was one of Wes Anderson's highest grossing films he'd ever made at that point, until Grand Budapest Hotel came out, which I think is still the highest grossing Wes Anderson film he's made. I could be mistaken there. I should also point out that despite its lone writing nod at the Oscars, Moonrise Kingdom was also nominated for Golden Globes for Picture Comedy Musical, a Producers Guild of America nomination, a Writers Guild nomination for the original screenplay category, and also got 5 Independent Spirit Award nods, alongside winning the Gotham Award for Best Feature. Now, in the original screenplay category, the film was up against Amour, Flight, Zero Dark 30, and Django Unchained, the latter of which was the eventual Oscar winner for original screenplay. So despite all this film went in through, did you think this was a worthy, writing nomination?
Oh, absolutely. I thought like for Wes Anderson to and Roman Coppola to make a coming of age story set in the 60s, I thought they did a really good job, and I thought it was, a very sharp, funny, heartfelt script and screenplay. So I definitely think it was worthy of a nomination. Um should have gotten in for production design as well, and costuming, but I digress. But as far as what it was nominated up against, well, another auteur director, writer director won the award. Should he have won it for Django Unchained? I don't think so, but
Ooh.
that's my hot take. If I was going to pick one, it probably would have been Zero Dark 30, if it wasn't Moonrise Kingdom, but I'm also biased on Moonrise Kingdom, and Django Unchained is not my favorite Tarantino movie. I think he did it better with Inglourious Basterds. So,
Oh, well, I have a hot take to say. I think Bastards is probably Tarantino's one of his weaker efforts. Um,
ooh,
yeah, I
okay.
do I do like Christoph Waltz in Bastards a bit more than Django, but I personally think Django is, I guess, a better movie. Although granted, I'll probably talk more about Django Unchained a little bit on the Patreon podcast down the road. I'll do with one of my guests who's already been on the Patreon episode already. But we will discuss about Django Unchained. So I'll try to be brief with my thoughts on Django, in that I remembered it being a pretty solid Quentin Tarantino film. I don't think it's his second. Actually, I would say it's probably in the top 5, but it's not top 3. Funny enough, I actually think there are others out there. Obviously, Pulp Fiction is my favorite of his, and then right now I have Hollywood at number 2,
Mhm.
and then Hateful Eight at number 3. So
Oh,
Django is probably like number 4. Yeah, it because I think Tarantino has gotten much better over the years he's been mellowing out with age, and he's gotten much more toned down with his, frantic writing style that I'm growing very much like, okay, I'm not, okay, settle down. I'm not enjoying it like I did when I was like, whatever it was, 15, 16 years old when I saw your movies. Now I'm like, okay, come on, let's stop doing the same shit you keep doing over and over, where it's like, bunches of monologues, when it's like you really could have, cut it down to like a couple words. But it worked for Hateful Eight and Hollywood for me, and definitely in Pulp Fiction easily. I also was looking through as you were rattling off, or you were talking about the categories: production design and costumes. Yeah, production design, they just went for, with the exception of Hobbit and Anna Karenina, they went for the Best Picture nominees, which were Les Miserables, Life of Pi, and then Lincoln won the category. Costumes, they gave it to, yeah,
Lincoln getting it. Anna Karenina, I can get behind because that was Jacqueline Duran who did Barbie. So, like, I have no qualms with that whatsoever. Plus, I went to the exhibit at the Academy Museum, and there was a special section for Anna Karenina, Beauty and the Beast, and Barbie. Stunning work.
And then I'm looking through costumes: Les Miserables, Lincoln, Best Picture nominees, Mirror Mirror, which is
Mirror got in. Get out of here.
Yeah, there was a posthumous nomination, and the costume designer on that worked on Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay, well, all right, I'll let that slide. I retract my judgment. I'm so sorry.
And then Snow White and the Huntsman, which was Colleen Atwood, which is like a named costume designer. So
naturally.
Yeah. So it's kind of tough for something like Moonrise Kingdom to get in. I do wonder, even though this was a field of 10, well, it was like a sliding scale at the time, I almost wonder if Moonrise Kingdom was close to getting in for Best Picture, only because it did get the Producers Guild nomination, but
it probably was on the bubble.
Maybe, yeah, because like I know Skyfall was right there, and it got more tech nominations, even though Bond is usually not a Best Picture nominee. This one came pretty close, Skyfall.
I mean, Best Song, our lovely Adele won for that. Yeah. Thank goodness, because Skyfall is such a great Bond theme.
It is, yeah, and even the it tied also for sound editing too. It was actually one of the last ties we had with this and Zero Dark 30.
Zero Dark, okay.
The original screenplay category.
So here's why, if Django didn't win and Moonrise didn't win, Zero Dark 30 should have won, because that is such a tight script, and the tension that is carried over in that film is so good. Jessica Chastain is incredible in Zero Dark 30. We do not talk about that film enough. And yet, I do think it's one of the better war films or movies about like the war on terror in the 2010s, in a way that like it's just been lost to time. And I think it's stunning. So,
well, I haven't seen it in a long time. I will cover it on the Patreon podcast. Yeah. So I might ask you to come back on for that down the road. Maybe in time for the House of Dynamite, I think it's called.
Oh, Catherine Bigelow is back, baby! I can't wait.
Yeah. So yeah, we might cover it in time for that. I don't know. We'll have to see how our schedules align. But yeah, I might have you back on for that. Yeah. But as for the Moonrise Kingdom nomination itself, I'm okay personally that it got the nomination for screenplay. It's odd because I was talking with Andrew Corns from Revisionist Retrospect, Revisionist Almanac, and he's prepping for the 2012 episode, and he had stated, because I asked him, I'm like, okay, we got the Field of Five that we got with Amour, Flight, Moonrise Kingdom, Django, Zero Dark 30. And yet there were two films on the bubble that almost got in but just couldn't quite get in. And it was Looper and The Master. And I find it really interesting that we got the lineup that we got, and yet The Master, despite it getting 3 acting nominations, just could not make it in for original screenplay.
That's true.
And I almost forgot too. Harvey Weinstein's company, the Weinstein Company, they did produce both The Master and Django. So I almost wonder if them pushing for Django more than The Master probably hindered The Master's chance of getting in for screenplay at the Oscars. And then Looper, it probably was a case of, the sci-fi blend that the Academy just didn't have an appreciation for, or didn't even know Rian Johnson until the Knives Out
Okay,
movies.
and pause. Can we talk about the fact that this is kind of breaking news right now? Reactions are coming out of TIFF right now for Wake Up Dead Man, which is the third Benoit Blanc Knives Out Rian Johnson joint, and it's getting positive reviews, which I'm like, yes!
Yeah.
Let's go! Yeah. I'm so excited!
I mean, we all knew it was going to be good, but I should also say that, like, regardless of what happens, and I've already said this before, even on the Glass Onion episode, even if this new Knives Out movie didn't get any Oscar nominations, or if it got more than screenplay, I will be covering it on the Patreon podcast, but I already have someone in mind, Miles Hughes. He's coming back on for that down the road. So, what a coincidence. Yeah, we're talking about Rian Johnson with Looper, and boom.
And boom.
Wake Up Dead Man
This
reaction
is
shop.
happening, and oh gosh, I'm so excited for this film, and I'm so glad it's getting another limited release in theaters, which if you're listening to this and you have the opportunity to see it in theaters, do it. I'm saying that sight unseen, but that's how I saw Glass Onion, and what an experience being in the theater. Well, I mean, I saw it for Knives Out as well in theaters, but that's when Lionsgate was doing it. But for Netflix to put it out in theaters, and I know Rian Johnson pushed for it. Oh, this is so great. Also, Looper is a great, talk about another great original screenplay with an awesome Bruce Willis performance. You have Looper and you have Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
Also, just like we celebrate Bruce Willis for like him being an action star, but like some of his best work really came from these more genre-based, more obscure movies, and I just don't think he gets enough credit. And obviously, like what he's going through health-wise, like he's not acting anymore, but I just love that these really experimental directors were able to pull something great out of him before he was unable to do it again. So
I appreciate that he was able to take this opportunity, even something like this, and be like, all right, I worked with the Wes Anderson filmmaker, and it's great. He's gonna be on his record for forever. Yeah. So going back to Moonrise Kingdom, so I brought up some bulletin points I want to bring up regarding with what might have happened with the campaign with it. As Focus Features didn't have much to campaign outside of this and Anna Karenina for Best Picture, as you had already stated, Meredith, it was probably on the bubble for getting into the Best Picture because of the PGA nod, and it did get in for a screenplay. Meredith and I, as of this recording, we have not seen it more, but I can tell you right now, based on people I've talked with about it, it got in because of the international appeal it gained since Cannes. I mean, winning the Palme d'Or is not nothing. Usually it is nothing, but with the case of how Neon's been doing recently with Triangle of Sadness, Anora, there was another one they did. Parasite was another one where it's like they've done pretty well. Anatomy of the Fall is another one. Yeah, which we already covered on the podcast, and
so good.
Yeah, you winning the Palme d'Or is something. It's not nothing. But yeah, so Amor winning that really helped it out to get that screenplay nomination, and then Flight was a commercial and critical hit with critics and audiences alike, and I believe was touted as like sort of like a comeback film for Robert Zemeckis because he had been more into that motion captured fantasy world with Christmas Carol, Beowulf, Polar Express, and now it's like, oh wow, he's actually coming back to what we know him as, where he's playing with real life characters or like, real live action actors, and he's not dabbling into a lot of the CG. In fact, the biggest set piece involving CG is the plane twist itself. Mm-hmm. And the rest of it is just a character study, which I remember it being quite good, and Denzel is pretty good in the movie too. I haven't seen that since I saw it in theaters opening weekend, so it's been a while, and I'm curious to know what I think of it now, later. But I remember that was the last time Zemeckis made a good movie, in my opinion. So
I
there
have
was
not
that.
seen Flight. It is one of the few of Robert Zemeckis's filmography and Denzel Washington's filmography that I have not seen. I'm so sorry. So I have no
That's all
opinion
right.
on the matter.
Yeah, I would recommend it. If nothing else, Denzel Washington gives an Oscar nomination worthy performance for
Pretends
sure.
to be
I don't know if
shocked.
I.
Pretends to be shocked.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think there's only been maybe twice that I felt Denzel let me down, which was Roman J. Israel Esquire. I didn't think it was that great in, and then but it's more of the script issue, and I really thought he was miscast in The Little Things, but that's about it. It's impressive. It's like 2 roles where he's miscast or he's not really used properly as an actor, despite him trying to give it his all. And it's like, wow, it's impressive. Just 2 movies and that's it. And the rest of the time he's always great. And then yeah, Zero Dark 30 benefited from a late surge and became the eventual Oscar winner or the eventual winner at WGA because Django Unchained was ineligible. And it's because Tarantino was not an affiliated writer with that guild. So it allowed Mark Bull to win another guild from them. And then, like I said before, I'll be brief because I'll save this. I'll probably repeat this on my Patreon thing in more extensive detail. But it helped that with Django Unchained, it helped that Quentin Tarantino had already lost before for Bastards. And he had lost to Mark Bull, who had won for The Hurt Locker, which was the Best Picture Gangbusters winner. Like Catherine Bigelow's time, it was her time. Here's the screenplay win as well. So it made sense why it won there and Bastards didn't.
So they flipped it, basically.
Yeah, they flipped it, and 3 years later, we're down to the repeat, and they flipped it. And the fact that this was an incredibly weak field, I must say, where there wasn't a whole lot of strong front runners that really came out, or at least of this field, really, that was like, ooh, this is strong enough to win screenplay. And it's already early. We're recording this a couple weeks, maybe a week or so in advance, and we don't really have a front runner for the upcoming season we're about to get into with the awards for screenplay. But I will say this right now that, and I don't know if you've been paying attention to this either, you or any of the other people at Offscreen Central. Since 2009, this was the only time so far that we had a screenplay winner not go to festivals, which was Django Unchained.
Interesting.
Every other category from 2009, whether it's original or adapted, even the last couple of years, all the screenplay winners came from festival buzz. Like there was a surge, of hype, of anticipation for it, and that was part of the reason why years ago I never bought Barbie or Oppenheimer winning screenplay, because yes, there's a lot of hype and it had the box office numbers to back it up, but the festivals are where you're going to get a lot of the momentum for these screenplay winners.
Yeah.
Even happened with Precious. Precious was a film that had premiered at I think it was like Sundance, and I think it won the TIFF Audience Prize too, and it won a couple of other audience awards as well along the way, which it made sense looking back. Even I haven't seen Precious all the way, but for something like that to win all the awards from festivals, that's not nothing. That's a sign of this might surge at the right moment, and it might overthrown, or it might what do you call it? Dethrone. Thank you. It might dethrone Up in the Air, and it did, especially with the controversy that went on with Jason Reitman and Sheldon Turner that went on with that. But yeah, Django Unchained is so far is the only film in the preferential ballot era that has won a screenplay Oscar without having to go to major festivals.
So,
and the reason why they couldn't go, sorry. Go ahead.
No, finish your point, and then I'll make my.
Well, I was going to say the reason why it couldn't go to any film festivals is because they were literally finishing this right into the holiday season. So it couldn't go to the AFI Film Fest. It couldn't go to New York Film Fest for any kind of buzz. So they literally screened this at like a Directors Guild screening, and it like beginning of December, and then that's how they started the buzz. They're like, all right, well, Tarantino hasn't won another Oscar in a while. and he should have won for Bastards. At least some of us think that way. The voters I'm talking about, and that's what happened. And it also helped that Tarantino was doing a spaghetti western in a more highly stylized take, allowing itself to win the screenplay Oscar, which it was a clever and creative way of telling this kind of story. Obviously, it gained a lot of controversy in regards to how Tarantino told said story, but I'll dive more into that on my Patreon episode down the road. Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, so as you alluded to, like, I do Oscar predictions at Off Screen Central, and we have we're close to the end of our way too early predictions, and as we are gearing up for actual, like, our Oscar boards being active and live, and looking back on what I did for my early predictions for original screenplay, the only one that I have included in there that did not go to a festival, which, if Warner Brothers were smart, if being the key word, they could capitalize on this, Sinners being part of that lineup. Talk about an original film that didn't go to a festival, and how Ryan Coogler blends different genres together. Like, I think it's astounding. And if Warner Brothers were smart, they would re-release it in IMAX theaters this fall to bring it back into the conversation. My MVP, Josh Allen, is doing the most for the awards campaign right now. He was just interviewed this week and talked about Sinners and his wife, Haley Steinfeld, and her performance in it. And of course, judging someone for not seeing it in IMAX. So that could be a surprise, but right now, we are in full fall film festival season right now. So many, like, Wake Up Dead Man getting good nominee or getting positive buzz right now. Probably going to get it.
Yeah.
Probably going to be in the conversation for adapted screenplay. I would love for Phoenician Scheme or Materialist to hop into the mix. Materialist is one of my favorite movies this year. That could be its own conversation.
So far.
Yes, so far. Well, my favorite film this year, actually, so far, is The Ballad of Wallace Island, which that does not have a shot of making it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That did happen.
Yeah.
I forgot that actued came out.
What a great film. I absolutely adore it. Tim Daly is hilarious in it. Carey Mulligan is fantastic. The soundtrack is just an indie fan's dream, basically. And that is an original script as well. Focus is not going back to it. Like, they've got Hamnet on the prize right now.
Yeah.
And that is, for adapted screenplay. Chloe Zhao, I love her. So they will redirect their focuses where they need to, as opposed to going back to The Ballad of Wallace Island. But I think that's a good. That I just went on such a tangent. Moral of the story is, it is fascinating that is the statistic of the original screenplay winner usually comes out of one of the festivals, as opposed to a movie that skips them entirely. So,
or adapted. I mean, again, it's like since 2009, both original and adapted winners came from festivals, except Django Unchained. And it just showed, like, because when I found out about this, I think a couple of years ago, I was like, wait a minute, you're meaning to tell me this is the only time this has ever happened? And I just thought, okay, from now on, until I see a movie break out from that doesn't go to festivals and it still wins the Oscar, I'm not predicting any of the non-festival films to win screenplay, until I see it happen. And it hasn't happened so far. And the only reason why, at least I could think of, why Django Unchained was able to break from this mold was the fact that it was just a weak lineup.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't anything that strong for there. Moonrise Kingdom got the lone screenplay nomination, but we know, like, I think The Red Balloon was the last time a lone writing nomination won an Oscar, and that was a short film going up against multiple feature films. Mm-hmm. And it just showed you how much they didn't care for the other films. Like, screw it, give it to The Red Balloon. More just didn't have enough of the buzz to capitalize on anything but international Oscar. Flight not a Best Picture nominee, and then Zero Dark 30, it was obliterated by the controversies, going on with that, which I'll explore more on the Patreon episode down the road. So yeah, it just made sense, and Christoph Waltz was gonna get that second Oscar. He missed I don't think he was nominated for Critics' Choice or SAG, because he might have missed the cutoff. I think with SAG he was categorized as lead there. And then Critics' Choice, I don't think he made it in time to get in for a nomination, but he won Golden Globe and BAFTA, and it was like, all right, this is just enough to get in for the supporting actor race, and he's going to win it. And they're like, all right, let's give it the screenplay win. And along with everything I'd said before about why I think Tarantino won the Oscar for that, but regardless of what we have to think about, that's just a theory I have as to why Django Unchained is the only film to win without a festival run. But yeah, that's something going forward, and I'm curious to see what happens with this year too. I had my eye on the ball last year to be like, I'm curious to know if there's going to be a film that doesn't come out in festivals that people think, oh, that's going to win screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think it's going to happen unless we have like a really weak field.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. Did One Battle After Another go to any festivals?
Nope.
Okay, so as of now, Kinsey, who's in charge of Off Screen Central, she sees a path for that to be a front runner for adapted screenplay. But with this stat in mind, it's like, okay, I gotta hold that kind of loosely, considering.
Yeah, because we could talk about it off air, but I think there's another film that I honestly do think is probably going to be, it's going to have a better shot at winning that category over One Battle After Another. But I am curious to see how that turns out, the new PTA film, because that's just a whole question in of itself with that one, where it's like, what's going to happen here? Are there any other nominations, going back to Moonrise Kingdom before we wrap up, are there any other nominations you would have liked to have seen this get recognized or be considered, maybe, potentially?
Definitely. Production design, score even, costuming. I mean, I think it definitely deserved more like technical recognition. If I wanted to give an acting nomination, probably Edward Norton in Best Supporting Actor would be my money. Same how I feel about Michael Cera. If anyone were to get a nomination out of Phoenician Scheme, acting wise, it should be Michael Cera for Best Supporting Actor. I mean, considering how Moonrise Kingdom has rose in the rankings for me, should it have gotten into the Best Picture lineup? I wish. If it were, the full
10.
The extension of Best Picture. But yeah, I think those were the primary categories I would have thrown it into. What about you?
Yeah, definitely supporting actor. Yeah, I'd be okay with score. I'm not really the biggest fan of Thomas Newman, but I thought he did an okay job with Skyfall. But yeah, no, I'm trying to think what else there would have been. Picture, sure, I guess I'm okay with it. I'm not really pissy about it like I am with the more recent Best Picture nominees we've gotten. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. I don't need to piss off even more recent fans, especially this last season where I'm like, I have some hot takes and I don't.
I have plenty of hot takes on last season.
You see, you don't want me to hold my tongue on getting the Christopher Nolan bros on us. I'm gonna hold my tongue on getting any of the recent Best Picture nominees coming after me with their torches and pitchforks. So I'll just I'll keep my mouth shut about that. So. But other than that, no, I don't really have much else. Just really grateful and glad that Wes Anderson got a lone writing nomination. And hey, we were able to talk about a favorite director of yours, as well as talking about what the hell happened this year. And now I've passed on a stat that I've been trying to very quietly be like, hey guys, look, one of these things isn't like the other, and now with the stat with festival. So yeah.
You're passing along so much goodies here with that stat, and for all the Oscar pundits out there as they're putting together their ballots as we dive straight into award season, because it's here and it's not stopping until March.
No, it's not, and I'm really curious to see what's to come for sure this season. What's going to be the next divisive movie everyone's film Twitter is going to hate?
We already have one, and it's not even going to be a part of this award cycle, and we're not going to talk about it until we're off air. So it's already here.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. This is a much more quicker, I guess, yeah, like quicker episode that we've done lately, which is a bit of a surprise, I must say, for me. Usually they run to about, close to an hour and a half, hour and 40. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm glad we were able to get to like an hour and 10, hour and 12. So
I'm such a yapper usually. People are always like, it's only going to be an hour, and then I'm on and it's like 90 minutes, 2 hours later. So this is pretty good.
Yeah, it happens. No, but we did, to be fair, we did have a fair amount to talk about with the awards section and what happened with the Rays, because even when I came on and started doing the episode, or even just doing the show, I'm like, how the hell did we get the winner we got? I mean, I like Django Unchained, but like, what happened here? And then once I started doing the deep dive, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah. Anyways, like I said, thank you very, very much, Meredith, for being on the show. Before we officially sign off, is there anything you'd like to plug in where our listeners can follow you along?
Totally, yeah. Thanks for listening to me yap about Wes Anderson again. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and Threads at Meredith Loftus. You can check out Collider. Sometimes I write, mostly though I edit. So if you check out the list, that is my domain, and we have a lot of great writers and a lot of great editors who are behind the list on Collider, so check those out. And as I mentioned, I am part of Offscreen Central, so you can check out all of my Oscar predictions for this upcoming year. I contribute to the Oscar board. I have done interviews with different people in the world of Wes Anderson during earlier this year for the Phoenician Scheme, so you can check them out there. And I also write for Lady Geeks Media. I just finished reviewing the Hard Knocks training camp with the Buffalo Bills, which wrapped up this week, and they kick off their first game tomorrow against the Baltimore Ravens. Go Bills. Yeah, you can go back and check that out too. So there you go.
Nice. And yeah, give a special shout out to Offscreen Central. Keep I just like you guys were, just like you were last time. I want to still give a shout out. Everyone follow Offscreen Central. They're doing some wonderful work, and it's interesting to see some of their predictions too, especially this past season. I'm like, this is a really interesting selection of predictions on here, and the interviews as well you guys give are incredible as well. So check out their site as well. I highly agree, and all the way thumbs up, definitely. As for me, you could follow myself and the show through Linktree under @Matthew995, where you could follow along on all my social media accounts, such as Twitter and Letterboxd. On the same site, I provide a link where you can listen to more episodes of the show through Spotify and YouTube. I encourage any and all to please support the show through our After Hours Patreon. We recently started a couple months ago now. Membership is starting only at $3 a month, and you're not only supporting me financially, but you're also able to listen to more of my bonus episodes. Like I said, we'll be covering Zero Dark 30. I might get Meredith Loftus on. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll get her on for something else.
Who's to say?
But I definitely will get you back on for another episode down the road. We'll have to see how schedules align. Django Unchained I'll also cover on the Patreon episode, as that will be in reference to how it beat out the lone screenplay nominee, as well as winning other Oscars. So we'll talk about that down the road as well. I'll be talking about Django Unchained with another guest, by the way. And if you're interested in being in the hot seat, just like Meredith has here today, let me know, and hopefully we can arrange that happening soon. In the meantime, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and we hope to see you at the movies. Take care, guys.